My parents tried to give my inheritance to their golden daughter, but my grandparents had a surprising twist in store. The male 28-year-old hails from a family with a complicated and long history of favoritism. My younger sister Amy, 25, has always been chosen by my parents, particularly my father, over me. This predilection began in childhood and only worsened as we grew older. Amy was the golden child in my early memories. When I was 5 and she was 2 years old, our parents threw her an elaborate birthday party complete with professional face painters, a bouncy castle, and a petting zoo. That year, I celebrated my birthday with a store-bought cake and a little family lunch. This helped set the tone for years to come. As we grew older, the disparities became clearer. Amy always got the coolest toys, the best clothes, and the most attention. I remember saving months of allowance for a new bike when I was 10 years old. Amy wanted one as well, so when she saw it, she threw a fit. Rather than teaching her about waiting and saving, my parents went out and bought her an even nicer bike than mine. Another area where bias was visible was in education. Amy's parents attended all of her school festivities, whereas they usually missed mine. In 4th grade, I played the lead role in the school play. I practiced for weeks with considerable enthusiasm. My parents arrived an hour late on the night of the performance, so they missed my key scene. They consoled Amy after she complained of a stomach ache. She was fine later on. They had simply lost track of the time they spent playing with her. In terms of academics, nothing I did seemed to enough. I joined the math club, got straight A's in middle school, and even won first place in a regional science fair. Though my parents were unconcerned about Amy's accomplishments, they offered her a celebratory supper and a new phone as encouragement to keep improving when she received a B+ on one of her weakest subjects. Specifically, high school was difficult. With an eye on their approval, I immersed myself in any activity I could. Along with maintaining a 4.0 GPA, I was the editor of the school newspaper and the debate team captain. Amy breezed through school, barely maintaining a C average and spending much of her time hanging out with friends. I was chosen from our university as one of 2 junior-year applicants to participate in a well-known summer program at Harvard. It was an honor, and I felt wonderful. When I informed my father the news over supper, he grumbled and shifted the conversation to Amy's upcoming dance performance. At least my mother said, "That's nice." But she moved on quickly. My parents were unable to transport me to the airport on the night Amy's concert occurred on the same day I was leaving Harvard because they wanted to see Amy perform. I asked my friends' parents for a ride. Another painful experience was the college admission process. I spent months refining my writings, participating in extracurricular activities, and preparing for the SAT. Several prestigious institutions accepted me, and I was awarded a substantial scholarship to my preferred choice. When I told my parents about this at supper, their reaction was barely acceptable. "That's good, but don't let it run to your head. College isn't everything," my father warned me. "Just remember about us when you're off becoming a big shot," my mother remarked. My parents, on the other hand, were very understanding when Amy barely graduated from high school and decided not to attend college. They appreciated her for knowing herself and challenging conventional norms. They did something they never did for me. They paid for her car as a graduation gift. This repeated favoritism caused me significant emotional distress. Throughout my teens and early 20s, I battled anxiety and sadness. I began therapy in college and realized that my parents' behaviors were not my responsibility. Years of effort were required to improve my self-esteem and learn to validate myself without relying on my parents' approval. Despite the fact that my immediate family did not support me, I was able to live a respectable life. By the time I graduated from college with honors, I had a respectable job in finance and had even acquired my own home by the age of 27. Although my parents aren't, I'm proud of what I've accomplished. Here is where the present drama begins. On my father's side, my grandfather died not long ago. He left a big estate and was a successful entrepreneur who began from scratch. In his will, he divided his property evenly to his grandchildren, including myself, Amy, and our cousins, as well as his children, father, and siblings. My half of the inheritance was substantial, about $500,000. It would have allowed me to invest in my future, pay off my student loans, and possibly even start my own business someday. This unexpected windfall and the opportunities it could provide made me thrilled. When the will was read, my parents visibly became irritated. Later, they got me aside and told me that they thought it was unfair that I received an equal share. Amy, who lives in our parents' basement and works part-time at a coffee shop, said she needed the money more because she was struggling. Even though I was surprised, I tried to remain calm. I stressed that Grandpa made this decision. They had no say in how he did it. They insisted that I act morally and give Amy my due share. They were upset when I declined and started guilt-tripping me, calling me unappreciative and selfish. Every occasion that my father could recall in which they had assisted me was discussed. Though I worked part-time to help with funds, Dad prioritized paying for my medically necessary braces, purchasing the absolute minimum of school supplies, and allowing me to live at home while attending college. He conveniently forgot about the car they purchased Amy, the numerous shopping trips, and the fact that they still support her at the age of 25. The situation became increasingly more serious. My father, as executor of the will, decided to handle everything himself. Along with her own inheritance, he claimed that he would interpret Grandpa's intentions and give Amy my entire share. He said Grandpa would have hoped he knew about our unusual predicament. I was broken. This was not only clearly illegal, but it was also a painful reminder of how little my parents thought of me. I tried to argue with them, pointing out that Grandpa had always treated all of his grandchildren equally and was aware of our situation. My mother then accused me of speaking badly of the deceased by saying that Grandpa would have wanted anything other than what my father advocated. I recalled memories of Grandpa encouraging my academic and career objectives, but my parents dismissed them as misinterpretation. They stated that Grandpa wanted to make sure Amy was taken care of and had quietly expressed concerns about her future. When I inquired why he hadn't simply penned the will that way, they didn't respond. Amy, for her part, felt embarrassed in the situation but did not criticize our parents. When I tried to talk to her alone, she simply shrugged and said, "Mom and Dad know best." She was clearly not going to be much help. I sought advice from Grandpa's widow, my paternal grandmother, as I felt misled and wounded. She grew outraged when she found out what was going on. She informed me that my parents had no right to change the will, and that this was not what Grandpa had intended. Grandma sent some material that clarifies the situation. Several years ago, my parents allegedly urged Grandpa to leave everything to Amy in his will. Grandpa had fiercely resisted, stating that all of his grandchildren should be treated equally. He had even inserted a provision in his will stating that anyone who challenged the equitable distribution would lose their peace. Armed with this knowledge, I questioned my parents. Grandma's revelation of their previous attempt to influence the will astonished them. Saying they were simply concerned with Amy's future helped my father explain it, but I could see the guilt on their faces. Grandmother acted immediately away. She contacted the other executors and lawyers listed in her will. She also contacted my father's siblings, who were similarly outraged by what he was proposing. Together, they put an end to my father's scheme and ensured that the will was carried out as intended. Despite their displeasure with me, my parents had to back down. They stated that I should have addressed this internally rather than involving others and accused me of turning the family against me. My mother wailed over how I had divided the family and deceived them. When my father threatened to cut me completely out of their will, I told him I never expected anything from them. Now, if I accept the request, they threatened to cut off all communication. My father even suggested that if I inherited their house, I would not be welcome there. In a particularly low blow, my mother stated that my acceptance of the money shows that I never genuinely loved them and was only looking to profit from their death. The issue divides the extended family. A handful of my cousins are supportive since they are aware of the long-standing favoritism and appreciate my efforts to advocate for myself. Others feel I should have yielded in order to maintain peace, as family harmony takes precedence over financial concerns. Although my father's siblings are clearly on my side, this has affected their relationship as well as my parents. Amy is caught up in all of this. She revealed in me privately that, while she feels horrible and did not ask for it, she is not ready to confront our parents. She's been educated her entire life to rely on them and seek their approval, so I don't blame her completely. Still, a part of me wishes she could help me just once. This situation has brought back a lot of prior pain and hatred. I find myself recalling all the times I was passed over or disregarded in favor of Amy, the birthday parties I missed, the school functions my parents missed, the accomplishments that went unnoticed. This one incident seemed to be bringing to a close a lifetime of injustice. Despite the fact that the entire event has created a schism in the family, I am standing firm and want to claim my inheritance as Grandpa intended. My parents rarely talk to me, and family gatherings have become awkward. I missed our monthly family supper last week for the first time in as long as I could bear the icy shoulders and accusing glares. Despite the stress, a small part of me feels empowered. For the first time in my life, I am confronting my parents' harsh treatment. I'm declaring my worth and refusing to be written off. It's both dreadful and liberating at once. Though I believe I am in the right, the family turmoil is tiring me. I've been experiencing anxiety episodes again, which I hadn't had since college. To cope with all of this stress, I'm considering returning to therapy. Am I the one who should have refused to meet my parents' expectations and accepted my inheritance? Should I have simply given Amy the money to keep the peace? Although I am tired of being the family scapegoat, I am equally afraid of losing my family completely. Any advice or comment would be greatly appreciated. Update. A lot has transpired since my initial post, which was 6 months ago. I'd want to thank everyone for their encouragement and advice. It helped me stay strong throughout tough times. Let me start with the legal side of things. Many of you cautioned me, and I did consult my own attorney. He confirmed that I had every right to inherit, and that what my father attempted was illegal. He assisted me in recording everything and preparing to take legal action if necessary. Fortunately, things did not turn out as expected. My grandmother, together with my father's brothers, and her lawyers resolved issues outside of court. I received my entire money, and the will was carried out exactly as intended. My father was dismissed from his position as executor due to his attempts to manipulate the will. This was a pretty tough process that lasted several weeks. My parents threatened litigation, and there were stressful meetings and angry phone calls, but the law was clear, and they had to back down. The family rupture, which is still ongoing, is significant. My parents initially remained firm in their stance. They accused me of being avaricious and uncaring of my sister. They also attempted to rally other family members against me, spreading charges that I had pressured Grandpa into giving me money. Fortunately, most of the family saw through their deception. About a month after the will was accepted, there was one particularly terrible incident at a family gathering. My parents caused a disturbance when they arrived unannounced, despite the fact that my aunt was hosting and had not invited them. My father began to yell about how I had stolen from Amy and corrupted Grandma against her. My mother tossed an old photo album straight at my feet, claiming that I had wrecked all these great memories. It was unpleasant and terrible. It took several family members to calm things down and persuade my parents to go. My grandmother, bless her heart, proved to be my most significant supporter throughout this process. She told stories about how my grandfather had always been proud of my accomplishments and how he wanted to ensure that all of his grandchildren had equal opportunities. She even claimed Grandpa kept a scrapbook of my successes, including newspaper clippings of academic distinctions, copies of my college acceptance letters, and even the program from the university play that my parents had been late for. This understanding was both sad and amazing. Grandma also offered to help the rest of the family organize their records. She staged a family meeting that excluded my parents, recounting the full history of my parents' prejudice, even episodes I had long forgotten or had never heard of. Having someone finally realize the injustice I had endured for years was gratifying, but it also revived old wounds. About my sister Amy, she finally found her voice throughout all this. She approached me personally and apologized for not standing up for me before after some soul-searching and several lengthy conversations with our grandmother. She claimed she thought our parents' preference was inappropriate, but she was too afraid to challenge it. We talked about our childhoods and how they inspired each of us in tremendous depth and emotional intensity. Amy stated that being the favorite child was not as enjoyable as it seems. She never learned to stand on her own 2 feet and felt a lot of pressure to meet our parents' expectations. She told us of times when she wanted to do things on her own, but our parents would step in and handle everything for her, depriving her of the opportunity to grow and learn from her mistakes. This conversation marked a significant turning point in our relationship. We began to rebuild the sibling bond that our parents' prejudice had severed. Just the 2 of us have been meeting for coffee on a regular basis to discuss and encourage each other during this family issue. Everyone was taken aback when she announced that she planned to use her inheritance to pay for education. She claimed that watching me stand up for myself inspired her to start directing her own life. Once she had selected what she wanted to study, she enrolled in a nearby community college with the intention of transferring to a 4-year university. Our parents put out a shocked gasp. I suppose they were aware that their babying had not benefited Amy. My parents' reactions to all of this have been diverse and changing. They initially assaulted both of us angrily. They tried to guilt Amy into dropping out of college to support the family because they said I turned her against them. When their previous plan proved unproductive, they altered it. After numerous lengthy conversations with my grandma and witnessing Amy's remarkable transformation, my mother realized how detrimental their actions had been. She has made some tentative steps toward reconciliation, including starting therapy to address her issues. She contacted us to apologize, admitting that she had been unfair and requested the opportunity to make things right. It's a gradual process, and while I'm cautiously optimistic, I'm also setting firm restrictions. Unfortunately, my father has been less willing to own his mistakes. He is still outraged and feels like the victim in all of this. He has been cool toward Amy since she decided to go to college and hardly speaks to me. He has tried to control us several times, threatening to sell our childhood home if we don't come to our senses or forgiving us if we admit we were wrong. Although we are both standing firm, it hurts to see him alienate both of his children in this manner. The dynamics within the extended family have shifted considerably. I now reside closer to my father's siblings, who have been really helpful, and my grandma. Hearing from my aunts and uncles about how they dealt with my father's hard behavior throughout the years has helped to alleviate my loneliness in this fight. I've also formed stronger ties with several of my cousins who have supported me. Starting a monthly cousin meal helps us to catch up without the drama of the older generations. For myself, I have made good use of my fortune. After paying off my college loans, I now have a great sense of financial freedom. Working with a financial advisor, I developed a diverse investment portfolio. I've also saved some money in case I decide to start my own business in the future. I'm looking into opening a community center that offers competitively cost mental health treatments and financial literacy lectures. However, for me, purchasing therapy for myself and volunteering to do the same for Amy has been the most meaningful use of the funds. We're both learning to set fair boundaries with our parents and attempting to heal from our childhood experiences. Despite the long road ahead, I already feel like I'm growing in my understanding and ability to overcome emotional neglect and long-term prejudice. This entire procedure has brought some unexpected positive changes into my life. I now know a lot about setting boundaries and defending myself. Even though I know I did the right thing, it has not been easy, and there are still difficult days. I feel proud of myself for defying guilt and pressure. Among the more unexpected outcomes has been a shift in my career route. Dealing with all of this family discord and going through treatment has made me realize my own love for helping individuals who, dealing with all of this family turmoil and treatment has shown me how motivated I am to help others who have experienced similar family dynamics. I am currently considering returning to school to specialize in adult offspring of emotionally immature parents and working as a family therapist. I have also been assisting children from difficult family situations at a neighboring youth facility. It is extremely rewarding to be able to provide the encouragement and support that I wished I had received as a child. I'm even thinking of establishing a scholarship fund for youngsters in similar circumstances with some of my inheritance. My contact with Amy has gotten better. We celebrate Siblings Day once a month by doing something fun just the two of us. Our hiking and picnic last month were the most relaxed and connected we'd felt since we were kids. Without our parents' influence, we are gradually rebuilding our relationship on our own terms. Things with my parents continue to be hard. My mother has tried to rebuild our relationship. She has been attending therapy on a regular basis, and she has begun to realize some of the consequences of her bias. We've had a couple one-on-one lunches when we've had some honest, albeit challenging discussions about our history and future plans. Though it is not perfect, there is clearly room for improvement. Nonetheless, my father continues to be resistant to change. He still claims he has done nothing illegal and that Amy and I should be grateful. He refused to be in the same room as me, so he skipped several family occasions. Though it hurts, I'm attempting to let go of my desire to force him to see things differently or control his reactions. Grandma has become a pillar of strength for Amy and me. She has been telling us more stories about our grandfather and how proud he was of us for standing up for ourselves. She has always advocated for justice and understanding, making her an excellent mediator in family disputes. The entire experience has taught me a lot about what it truly means to be family. I've come to realize that sometimes the family you choose is more encouraging than the one you were reared in. Along with forming a close circle of friends who have been extremely supportive throughout this road, I have gotten closer to my aunts, uncles, and cousins who have stood by me. Setting limits and exercising self-care have become increasingly important to me. I'm getting better at saying no to situations that jeopardize my mental health, and I no longer feel awful about putting my personal well-being first. I was so focused with gaining my parents' approval that I had always avoided exploring new interests and activities. To those in the same situation, I would advise you not to let anyone make you feel terrible about collecting what is rightfully yours. Even if it causes disagreement, it is reasonable to defend oneself. Though family dynamics may be complicated, you are entitled to fair treatment. Remember, it is never too late to begin living the life you deserve. Consult a therapist if required. Surround yourself with positive individuals. And don't be afraid to set boundaries. Your value is determined by who you are personally, not how your family treats you. I'd like to thank each of you again for your suggestions and encouragement. It meant more than you could have imagined during a particularly difficult time. Despite the difficulties, I am optimistic about the future and feel a sense of self-assurance that I have not felt in years. I am excited about where this new chapter of my life will take me, and I am determined to break the cycle of favoritism and develop stronger relationships with my own future family members. At my engagement party, my mom raised a glass to toast. then took back my $45,000 wedding fund and gave it to my sister. She slapped me. In front of everyone. For saying no. 10 minutes later, she was in handcuffs, and my entire family turned on me. Charlotte Johnson is my name, and I'm 30 years old. Brookmere is a mid-sized city where I work as a graphic designer. Even if everything had been going smoothly, it seemed like the start of something much more significant. As I surveyed the dimly lit eatery, I couldn't help but smile. Everything seemed ideal. The aroma of fresh flowers in the air, the camel centerpieces, and the soft background music. We had an engagement party tonight. And Charles and I were finally moving forward after 4 years of dating. We would get married in 4 months. As tall and warm as ever, Charles was standing next to me, his hand resting lightly on the small of my back. He joined the marketing agency where I worked in the creative department 4 years ago, which is when I first met him. After we clicked during a company off-site retreat, everything just fell into place. He was intelligent, trustworthy, and kind. We had established a life based on mutual respect, trust, and objectives. Tonight, we celebrated our engagement with our closest friends and family. As I looked across the room, I saw a lot of people I knew grinning back at me. Charles' parents, old college pals, co-workers, and even some cousins I hadn't seen in a long time. Naturally, my own family was present, or the majority of them were. At a table close to the front were my parents, Owen Johnson and Erica Johnson. Their smiles appeared forced and rigid. Chloe, my younger sister, was also present, idly browsing through her phone as if she had been forced to come. Given her history, this is most likely her third phone this year. We were never particularly close, and the gap just widened over time. I ignored the uncomfortable tension, though. We weren't talking about previous family dynamics tonight, it was about commitment, love, and the next phase of life. Or so I believed. Erica got up and used a spoon to gently tap her wine glass. Conversation ceased as everyone's attention was drawn to her as the sound reverberated throughout the room. With a smile that stopped short of her eyes, she asked, "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" First, I want to say congratulations to my beautiful daughter Charlotte and her wonderful fiancé Charles. I hope your marriage is full of love, joy, and happiness. There was a round of raised glasses and courteous applause. I grinned and thanked Charles for squeezing my hand beneath the table. However, my mother's voice became abruptly colder and more purposeful when she spoke again. She remarked, "I also have an important announcement to make," as she put down her drink. After talking it over with Owen, we've decided to give Charlotte's $45,000 wedding fund to Chloe instead. The room fell silent. Confident that I must have misheard her, I blinked. I looked around, expecting someone else to join in the laughter, and let forth a small chuckle. "That's funny, Mom," I answered, attempting to seem lighthearted. "But that money is mine. I'm not giving it away." Erica's smile vanished in an instant. Lips pushed into a narrow line, her face hardened. "This isn't a joke, Charlotte," she snapped. "Your sister is getting married a few months after you, and she needs the money more than you do." My face felt a flood of heat. My stomach constricted. "What are you talking about? That's my money, Mom. You and Dad gave it to me. It's in my personal account." "Honey," she began in a tone of artificial serenity. "You're doing a great job, and Charles is too. Chloe and her fiancé are having a hard time, and she deserves a lovely wedding as well." My hands started to shake. Trying to stabilize myself, I got up. "We've already planned our wedding with that money. We've been careful. We're being smart with it. We even want to use part of it for a down payment on a home. You can't just take it away." Chloe almost knocked over her drink when she abruptly pushed her chair back and leaped to her feet. She yelled, "Charlotte, stop being so self-centered. You could have offered to share it a long time ago. You know I need it more than you do." My jaw clenched as I turned to face her. "This isn't about need, Chloe. It's about what's right. I planned ahead. You blew through your own fund, and now you expect me to just hand mine over." "She lives simply," asserted my mother. "She doesn't have much, and her fiancé is doing the best he can. You've always had more." I shot back, crossing my arms over my chest. "I've always worked harder," I yelled back. "I follow the rules. I was saved. I planned. I don't care how you spin it. I'm not giving you my money." Erica's cheeks turned red. The room's tension reached an intolerable level. Charles tried to soothe me by putting a gentle hand on my arm, but I refused to give up. Then, in what seemed like an eternity, my mother came forward and gave me a heavy slap across the face. Like a whip crack, the sound reverberated throughout the eatery. I jerked my head sideways. My eyes instantly swelled and my cheek ached, Not only from the pain but also from the shock. There was utter silence in the room. Nobody made a move. Chloe appeared astounded as well. Slowly, I turned back to face my mom. I spoke in a steady, low voice. "You don't get to hit me just because I said no." Someone at one of the surrounding tables took a sharp gasp. Then I heard it. A server at the bar talking softly into a phone. "Yes, hello. I need to report an assault. It happened just now at Alden's Bistro." After a few minutes, sirens could be heard coming toward the eatery. The guests were silent, with several of them glancing at me and others looking at their plates clumsily, not knowing how to respond. I remained mute as I took in the shock of what had just transpired. Even though my cheek hurt, the emotional sting was more intense. While my father quietly drew Erica away in an attempt to soothe her, Charles stood next to me, his jaw clenched. Two officers in uniform came inside the restaurant a little while later. One of them came over to our table and inquired as to if I had been attacked. I confirmed what had transpired with a low nod. A server who was close by came forward to describe the slap, describing how Erica had hit me in front of the diners. Erica attempted to justify herself by claiming that it was only a family issue, but the officer patiently explained that public violence is illegal regardless of a person's relationship. I was asked if I wanted to file charges by the officers. Despite my heart thumping in my chest, I spoke steadily. "Yes, I do." Right there in the restaurant, they arrested Erica. I saw Chloe looking at me in shock as the officers brought her out in handcuffs, as if I were the bad guy for just defending myself. My dad silently followed them out. The visitors were uncertain whether to applaud, weep, or depart, and the room remained motionless. Charles never once released my hand during the entire event. After consulting with my attorney, I formally filed a report and sought criminal charges later that evening. The following day, Erica was freed on bail, but the legal proceedings had already started. We went back to court a few weeks later, but this time it was for the smack rather than the money. Erica stepped before the court, who went over the restaurant's security footage and witness accounts. There was no denying the evidence. She was given a $2,000 fine, 6 months of probation, and required anger management training after being found guilty of misdemeanor assault. Fortunately, the judge offered her a 30-day suspended jail term rather than actual jail time. She avoided making eye contact with me while I sat in the courtroom. And I got up, looked directly into my mother's eyes, and responded unequivocally when the judge asked if I had anything to say. I didn't expect this from my mother, but no one is above the law. I was mistaken to believe that things would settle down once the trial drama subsided. Our family's division was only widened by the slap and the arrest. Erica didn't make contact. I was blocked on everything by Chloe. What about my dad? Well, he decided to keep quiet. However, the true storm was yet to come. When I returned home 3 weeks after the engagement party, I saw a hefty envelope in my mailbox. It was the kind of envelope that makes your stomach turn. It came from Hall & Sutter Associates, a law company. There was an official notice inside. My parents were suing me for the $45,000 fund, saying I had misappropriated it and it was only intended for tuition costs. I initially chuckled incredulously. When I was 17, I put the money aside in a custodial account, so it was legally mine. I was given complete control when I was 19. Chloe and I were informed by our parents that we may spend our money whatever we pleased after we reached adulthood. That I had been cautious, realistic, and goal-oriented was the only difference. I utilized some of it to pay for my education at a public university, used a scholarship to cover the remaining amount, and let the account grow. I was continually making plans for the future. In contrast, Chloe attended an expensive private school, left after 2.5 years, and used the remaining funds to start a boutique that collapsed after 7 months. She squandered her cash on a launch party with hired influencers, an expensive picture shoot, and branding. When all fell apart, all she had left was a fancy car that she had bought on a whim because she thought she would succeed. She and my parents wanted my money now that she had lost it. I engaged Brianna Lane, a shrewd, composed, and self-assured lawyer. She examined my papers, then turned to face me and said, "They don't have a case. The account was gifted to you. There are no restrictions on how you use it. Any mention of a verbal agreement won't hold up in court." I nodded, both relieved and irritated. I questioned, "Then why go through all this?" Brianna gave a shrug. "Because some people would rather drag you down than admit they made mistakes, especially when they're protecting someone else." Suddenly, I saw that I was facing not just a court battle but a lifetime of imbalance, denial, and partiality. My mom wasn't merely attempting to embezzle my money. She was making me pay for Chloe's failure in an attempt to make up for it. The ensuing months were among the most taxing of my life. Everything I had, including time, energy, and even concentration at work, was devoured by the legal matter. There were several preliminary hearings, emails, papers, and demands for discovery. I was constantly reminded that this was more than just a lawsuit when I walked into the courtroom and saw my parents seated next to Chloe, all of them averting their eyes from me. It was treachery. At the hearings, Chloe displayed smug looks, obviously sure that she would somehow take the money that I had been safeguarding for years. She spoke before the court during one especially heated session, stating that the fund had always been intended only for college. "Did you use all of your funds strictly for college expenses?" my lawyer asked her bluntly as he stood up. Chloe paused. A mumbled, "Well, not all of it," she said. Brianna gave a nod. "In fact, you dropped out of college and used the remaining amount for your own business venture and a luxury car, didn't you?" Chloe's expression tensed. "That's not relevant." However, it was highly pertinent. Brianna went on. "So if there were supposedly strict conditions on this money, why were you allowed to use it for non-educational purposes without objection?" Chloe was unable to respond. As the courtroom listened, I sat silently, my heart racing yet steady. My parents' partiality, Chloe's carelessness, and their attempt to hide her shortcomings by punishing me were all suddenly coming to light. Charles continued to be my anchor outside the courtroom. He attended every hearing, supported me during every obstacle, and never stopped reminding me that it was important to stand my ground. However, it wasn't simple. It seemed like everything I had planned for my wedding was being taken away from me because of the legal bills and emotional exhaustion. A portion of our planning had to be postponed. I didn't get any sleep. Sometimes I cried in the middle of the night, and other times I cried in between work meetings. However, I never gave up. I realized that money wasn't the only factor in this fight. For once, it was about holding my family accountable, about being seen, and about being valued. Things got worse just when I believed they couldn't get much worse. My cousin Melissa called me when I was at home going over a list of wedding vendors. She said empathetically, "Charlotte, I just wanted to say I'm sorry about the wedding being canceled." A beat skipped in my chest. "What are you talking about? The wedding's still on." A pause occurred. "Your mom called me last week. She said you and Charles broke up because he cheated on you." My mouth fell open. In the hour that followed, I got 3 more calls from bewildered friends and distant family members who wanted to know why the wedding had been canceled. Even phony emails purporting to be from me had been received, claiming that the event had been canceled. Nothing was in my sent folder when I checked my email, indicating that someone had created a phony account to mimic me. I was taken aback. My first thought was of Chloe. The trend was obvious, but I had no evidence. Legal charges were just the beginning of the sabotage. It had turned personal. One of the few family members who hadn't chosen a side was my mom's sister, Aunt Mara, whom I called. "I was about to call you," she sighed. "Your mother's been telling people you're lying about Charles, that you're unstable, and that the wedding was never supposed to happen." Weary, I reclined against the wall. I questioned, "Why is she doing this?" "Because she's protecting Chloe," Aunt Mara said kindly, in response. "She's always protected her, even when she didn't deserve it. I love Chloe, but your mom is enabling her. And now she's dragging you through the mud to make her look better." The treachery was more profound than any testimony given in court. In an attempt to gain compassion for my sister, my own mother was attempting to damage my reputation. When Charles entered that night, he saw my face right away. He said, "What's wrong?" I told him what Melissa had stated and gave him screenshots of the phony emails. He wasn't shocked, but he was angry. His words were bleak. "Your sister just contacted me too," he added. "She said she had proof that you were cheating on me. She sent photos." I looked at him horrified. He took out his phone and displayed a number of shoddy, obviously altered pictures of a woman standing next to an unknown man with my face pasted onto another body. It was extremely distressing but also hilariously awful. Charles gave a headshake. "Of course I didn't believe it, but my parents saw them too. Your family is trying to destroy everything we're building." At that point, we made the decision to act. For the wedding, we engaged a professional security company and sent in pictures of Erica, Owen, and Chloe with the directive that none of them be let entry. I didn't want to let them destroy anything else, even though I detested that it had come to this. I woke up the morning of the wedding feeling a weird mix of dread and excitement. Just outside of Brookmere, Charles and I had selected a stunning outdoor location. Elegant and intimate without being over the top. The green area was lined with white seats facing a wooden bridge covered in fresh flowers. As guests started to arrive, I stood in my dress in the wedding room, fixing my veil. Nerves tightened in my gut, not because of the vows, but because of what I knew was still possible. 2 skilled security officers were posted at the venue's entrance, and they were under tight orders to bar members of my immediate family from entering. I had reviewed all the details with Charles. I was still unable to unwind. The door of the bridal suite was knocked on at about 2:15. Lowering his voice, one of the guards entered. "Miss Johnson," he began carefully. "We've just detained a young woman attempting to enter through the back service gate. She matches the photo you gave us. Your sister, Chloe." My heart was racing. I inquired, "Was she alone?" "Yes," he replied. "But she was carrying a tote bag. When we opened it, we found a large can of red paint." My throat tightened each breath. She intended to destroy the bridal gown, the location, and the guests. Disbelief, sadness, and rage struggled for room in my chest. The guard asked, "Do you want to press charges? We can contact the local sheriff right now." I paused. I had every reason to call the police again after the slap, the lawsuit, the falsehoods, the altered photos, and now this. However, this was the day of my wedding. Their disarray had already cost me enough. I finally answered, "No," in a flat voice. "Just make sure she's removed from the property and doesn't come back. Please also check that my parents haven't tried to sneak in." He gave a nod and walked away. I slid onto a chair close by and tried not to cry. Isabel, my closest friend, was kneeling next to me. She muttered, "What happened?" My voice was hardly steady when I glanced at her. Chloe tried to sneak in with a can of paint. She was going to destroy everything. After widening in surprise, Isabel's eyes hardened in rage. With firmness she stated, "You know what? That means you win. They couldn't stop your happiness, so they tried to ruin it. But you stopped them. You stood your ground. Now go marry the man who stood by you through all of this. You deserve every bit of this day." I brushed away my tears, inhaled deeply, and got to my feet. My dad's brother, my Uncle Brian, escorted me down the aisle. Charles was waiting beneath the arch with his eyes fixed on mine as I entered the garden. The rest of the world vanished in that instant. The pain, the tears, the court dates, the betrayal, all of it passed. Love was the theme of today. Ours. It was a wonderful and touching ceremony. Our vows were filled with words of collaboration, strength, and loyalty. The guests erupted in cheers when the officiant declared us husband and wife. I felt light for the first time in months. Free. The reception exceeded our expectations in every way. Heartfelt statements from those who had supported us throughout it all were interspersed with music and fun. Isabel's toast brought tears to my eyes, the kind of emotions that come only after you've weathered a storm and found calm on the other side. Like nothing else mattered, Charles and I celebrated, danced, and ate. Actually, nothing else did. Almost everyone remarked on how lovely the location appeared, how joyful we appeared, and how the day was filled with true love. Despite hearing tidbits of the drama, a few guests respected our quiet. During dinner, one aunt murmured, "I'm so proud of you for standing your ground." Long after the cake was sliced and the last song was sung, her words continued to resonate with me. Charles and I ran hand in hand through a shower of rice that our friends had thrown as the night came to an end, hidden under a starry sky. We both smiled like children as we got into the car that was waiting at the curb and drove away. I took a moment to spin around and gaze at the venue's distant brightness. My sister had attempted, but failed, to destroy that moment. All of them had. We had the most amazing honeymoon. A tranquil seaside town far from Brookmere for 3 weeks. No courts, avoid conflicts, only the man I loved, the sun, and the waves. I took a deep breath. Take a deep breath. For the first time in a long, long time. I felt prepared to proceed once we got home. We concentrated on moving into our apartment, making plans for the future, and moving on from the past. I saw my cousin Rachel at the grocery store a few weeks later. "Did you hear about Chloe's wedding?" she inquired after giving him a quick embrace. I arched an eyebrow. My response was, "We're not exactly talking." "Your parents took out a loan to pay for everything," she stated. "It's going to be at the Grand Garden Hotel downtown, super lavish. They're flying in a chef from out of state. It's a whole production." I couldn't resist chuckling quietly. They were obviously going above and beyond for Chloe, even if it meant incurring debt. Rachel gently questioned, "Are you going if she invites you?" "She tried to ruin my wedding with a can of paint," I angrily remarked. "So no, I won't be attending." Oddly enough, no invitation was ever sent. Later, I learned via family rumors that a number of relatives turned down invites to Chloe's wedding because they were uncomfortable with the way I had been handled. Some people were courteous about it. Others spoke up. In any case, the gleam had begun to fade, both for Chloe and for my parents. The $45,000 had been used just as Charles and I had intended. Modest, purposeful, and full of loved ones, our wedding was everything we could have imagined. We also put the remaining funds toward a down payment on a beautiful apartment outside of the city. The mortgage was affordable given our combined wages, and for the first time, we were accumulating equity rather than spending it all on rent. Despite its diminutive size, our home was ours. Built with patience and difficult choices rather than handouts. After the wedding, my life found a rhythm I wasn't aware I needed. On the weekends, Charles and I decorated our new flat. Nothing extravagant, just walls covered with pictures from our wedding and trips, shelves we put up ourselves, and a couch we saved for. Charles giggled as he fumbled with an IKEA dresser one Saturday afternoon while we were arranging the guest room. "Who do you think will be our first overnight guest?" questioned him. I stopped, holding a screwdriver. My thoughts briefly turned to my parents. In a distant reality, they might say they're sorry. Perhaps Chloe would mature and accept accountability for her actions. I wasn't holding my breath though. Finally, with a kind smile, I said, "Whoever it is, there'll be someone who genuinely cares about us." Holidays passed without any texts, calls, or invitations. Their absence was painful at first. That year, my birthday went by in silence, and I never heard my mother's voice wishing me a happy birthday for the first time. But then I thought of the slap, the lawsuit, the falsehoods, the paint, the phony pictures, and the attempt, motivated by jealousy, to ruin something innocent. And the agony gave way to understanding. Every now and then, Charles would ask me if I believed that my family and I would ever be at peace. Sincerely, I said, maybe one day. But if it ever happens, it'll take more than an apology. It'll take change. And I don't see that coming anytime soon. In the end, Chloe's wedding came and went. I heard it was extravagant, with matching designer outfits for the bridesmaids, champagne fountains, and a hired string quartet. However, a few important family members chose not to go because they were uneasy about the way my parents and sister treated me. Even worse, word spread that Owen and Erica had taken out a huge loan. In an attempt to make a statement and act as though the previous year hadn't occurred, they had thrown everything into that one event. However, it had, and people recalled. I came to a deep realization as Charles and I developed our marriage. Family is more than simply your genetic relatives. It's the individuals who respect your peace, encourage your boundaries, and rejoice in your victories. Yes, I had lost a lot. However, I had acquired a house. A husband who supported me no matter what. Friends and family who never wavered after seeing the truth. Above all else, I still had myself. I didn't break down. I refused to give in. I defended what I had created out of honor, not greed. We were able to purchase stability, a home, and a future thanks to the $45,000 investment. In reality, though, it granted us freedom. Freedom from coercion. Liberty from culpability. Freedom from a family that thought obedience was a prerequisite for love. I defended myself. And I prevailed. Not only in court, however, in life. We appreciate you viewing this moving tale. Please remember to like the video to express your support if you found it to be touching or relatable. We would love to hear your opinions, so please leave a comment below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new uploads if you like stories with strong emotions and satisfying endings that are inspired by real life. Thanks for watching and diving into this wild family drama with me. If you love Reddit family drama, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.